The October mist crept through the gardens of Althorpe Estate like a living creature, dense and impossible, wrapping the centuries-old oaks in silver shrouds. King Charles III switched off the Bentley's engine 300 meters from the main gates, where security cameras couldn't reach, where no tabloid could transform his private grief into front-page headlines. His hands trembled against the Italian leather steering wheel. It wasn't the cold of the English night making them shake. It was something older, more visceral, something that had gnawed at his entrails since that tunnel in Paris 26 years ago. The argument with Camilla Parker still echoed through the corridors of his mind like distant thunder refusing to dissipate. It hadn't been an ordinary fight, one of those staged in civilized whispers between walls lined with damask silk. It had been brutal, true, words sharp as shards of broken mirror, each reflecting truths both had pretended not to see during decades of clandestine love transformed into official union. You never loved her, Charles, but you also never managed to bury her, and that ghost is destroying everything, wheeled, built. Camilla's voice had cracked pronouncing those words, not from anger, but from exhaustion. The fatigue of a woman who had waited decades to occupy the place she always desired, only to discover the throne beside Charles was already occupied by an absence, by a memory that refused to rot alongside the body that had housed it. Camilla was right. Diana Frances Spencer was not a faded memory stored in dusty albums. She was a constant presence, a ghost whispering in the halls of Clarence House. Watching from official photographs, where her smile seemed to question choices made and unmade. In moments of silence between state meetings, Charles heard her laughter. That crystalline laugh that captured the heart of an entire nation, but never his. Not the way it should have. Not the way she deserved. Charles traversed the side gate, using the key Charles Spencer, 9th Earl Spencer, had entrusted to him 3 years earlier. At a discreet meeting in a pub on the Thames banks. "You'll need to make peace with her, Charles," Diana's brother had said, his Spencer blue eyes so similar to hers, they hurt Charles like blades fixed on his aged face. "Not for you, for her. So she can rest." His Oxford shoes sank into grass soaked by the afternoon rain. Each step was an unauthorized pilgrimage across sacred ground he had profaned with years of emotional negligence. The scent of wet earth mixed with something more lily of the valley. Impossible. Lilies don't bloom in October. But the perfume was there, unmistakable, the flowers Diana Frances had carried in her bridal bouquet that July morning when the world watched a fairy tale born dead. The island in the center of the ornamental lake emerged from darkness like an open wound in the perfectly manicured landscape. For weeping willows bent over black waters like perpetual mourners, their branches brushing the surface in lament that never ceased. There, on that piece of land, isolated from the world by meters of cold water, rested the body of Diana Frances Spencer. Not the Princess of Wales from Vogue covers. Not the humanitarian icon photograph touching AIDS patients with unprotected hands in a revolutionary gesture. But the woman, the 19-year-old who entered St. Paul's Cathedral believing in happy endings and left it with invisible chains on her delicate wrists. Charles stopped on the wooden bridge connecting the shore to the island. The planks groaned under his weight, as if questioning his right to be there, to profane with his presence the only place where Diana Frances finally found peace away from flashbulbs and impossible expectations. On the other side, the circular Portland stone monument rose austere against the starless sky, guardian of sleep that came too early, too violently. In a Parisian tunnel that transformed princess into martyr and unrequited love into national tragedy, fresh flowers covered the memorial's base. There were always flowers. Even after 26 years, white roses, lilies, violets, offerings from a world that never forgot. That never forgave those who slowly destroyed her before the black Mercedes finished the job in concrete and twisted metal. But Charles hadn't come seeking the world's forgiveness. The world was an implacable judge that had already delivered its verdict in newspaper pages, in investigative documentaries, in conspiracy theories that proliferated like weeds in an abandoned garden. He had come seeking her forgiveness from the only person whose judgment truly mattered and who was no longer alive to grant it. His knees gave way before the memorial. The cold stone absorbed the warmth from his palms, while words choked for decades finally found voice in the absolute quietness of night. Diana, I don't know how to begin. His voice sounded strange even to his own ears, too fragile for a man who had worn Edward's crown. The night breeze intensified, bringing again that impossible perfume of lily of the valley, stronger now, almost sickening, as if someone had spilled an entire bottle of perfume into the still air. Charles closed his eyes, but the images remained sharp. Diana on the cathedral steps, wrapped in ivory silk and satin illusions, the 8-meter train dragging behind her like promises he already knew he wouldn't keep. For one brief instant, when their eyes met at the altar, he had questioned everything. But then he saw Camilla, among the crowd of guests, wearing discreet blue and a hat that hid half her face, and he moved forward. Always moved forward with Camilla as the true north of his emotional compass. I betrayed you before we even married, Charles confessed to the cold stone, to the indifferent night, to the ghost he felt watching. I wore the cufflinks she gave me. Camilla. The ones with our intertwined initials, C and C, on my wrist. At my wedding to you. The wind stopped. An unnatural silence swallowed the world, as if someone had pressed pause on reality. Not the rustling of dry leaves, not the distant croaking of frogs on the lake shores, not the whisper of waters. Nature itself held its breath. You discovered it on the honeymoon, Charles continued. The words now pouring like blood from a severed artery, impossible to stanch. On the Britannia, you saw the cufflinks, read the initials, and something died in your eyes. I saw it happen. I saw the exact moment you understood you had married a man who loved another woman. And I, God forgive me, I did nothing. Didn't explain. Didn't console, just pretended your broken heart was acceptable protocol. The temperature plummeted. His breath formed dense clouds in October air that moments before had been mild. The leaves of the weeping willows began to glow with impossible silver luminescence, as if absorbing light from a source that didn't exist in the visible spectrum of material reality. You tried. Charles's voice cracked like ice under pressure. God knows you tried in the early years. Tried to be wife, mother, princess. Smiled for cameras while dying inside. Held William Philip Arthur Lewis and Harry Charles Albert David against your chest, and found purpose where I had offered only emptiness. But I was obsessed. Camilla always has been the only person who understood me. Or so I told myself, to justify each secret phone call recorded and leaked to the hungry press, each meeting arranged at rural properties, far from prying eyes. The mist began to move, not pushed by non-existent wind, but with purpose of its own, like a creature awakening from long sleep. It intertwined, condensed, taking shape before Charles's eyes that should be deceiving him, but he knew, with ancestral certainty transcending logic, they were not. The rational part of his mind dedicated at Cambridge, trained in protocols and ceremonies, screamed to run, to seek the sanity of the car. But he remained on his knees, hypnotized, while the mist sculpted a feminine silhouette he would recognize in any dimension of existence. She emerged like a memory gaining substance. First, the delicate contour of shoulders that bore the weight of the entire world during years of relentless scrutiny. Then, the cascade of blonde hair that framed a face that captured the imagination of an entire generation. The eyes, those Spencer blue eyes that once shone with youthful love and naive hope, before dimming into melancholy that no diamond tiara could disguise. Diana Frances Spencer stood before him. Not exactly solid, not resurrected flesh and bone, but undeniably present. Translucent as a reflection on a tranquil lake, but real in a way that transcended limited definitions of reality. She wore a simple dress, without the sequins and silks. It was Diana, just Diana, the woman he had destroyed with indifference crueler than any declared hatred. Charles Philip Arthur George. Her voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. It wasn't accusatory. It didn't carry the poison he deserved to hear. It was just tired. The exhaustion of someone who carried a burden too heavy for too long and finally, in death, found rest that life never permitted. He couldn't articulate a word. Tears he hadn't shed since a rigid childhood under the icy gaze of Elizabeth Alexandra Mary, his mother who preferred corgis to hugs, flowed freely down an aged face marked by decades of duty and wrong choices. You came seeking forgiveness. Diana moved or floated. It was impossible to determine closer. But it's not me you need to forgive, Charles. It's me who needs you to understand something. Understand? The word came out strangled. How can I understand anything? I destroyed you, Diana, transformed your life into a hell of appearances and institutionalized loneliness. You raised William and Harry practically alone, while you love Camilla. Rosemary. Diana completed without cruelty, merely stating immutable facts, and that tore me apart every day, every night sleeping beside you. Knowing that when you touched me, you thought of her, that my body was a convenient substitute, that my efforts were a performance evaluated by an invisible court and deemed utterly insufficient. Charles sobbed, a guttural sound of pure pain he didn't know he was still capable of producing. I didn't understand. Didn't want to see the dimension of what I was doing to you. You did see. Diana's voice hardened slightly. Acquiring steel she had developed in the final years, after the divorce, when she finally found her own voice far from the fetters of protocol. Men always see. They just choose not to acknowledge because acknowledgement requires change, and change hurts. It's easier to label the woman unstable, dramatic, crazy. Easier to whisper borderline in Buckingham Palace corridors than admit you systematically drove her mad. The air weighed like molten lead. Charles felt each word like a surgical blade, removing layers of self-justification he had meticulously constructed over decades. I said that. God and all the saints forgive me, I told my private secretaries you were unstable, that you needed psychiatric treatment, while I was the cause of your despair. The bulimia started 3 weeks after the wedding. Diana spoke with cold clarity. When I finally understood I would never be enough, that my body, no matter how thin, how perfect by impossible standards, would never be the body you wanted to wake up beside. So I began to punish it. Eat and expel. Eat and expel. Control over something, anything, when my entire life was in the hands of Lady Susan Hussey and other protocol advisors, determining even how I should sit. Diana Francis. Charles extended his hand. But it passed through the translucent air where the apparition floated. He was touching mist. Touching materialized regret. Do you remember the day I tried to throw myself down the stairs? Diana asked, and Charles felt blood freeze in his veins. I was pregnant with William. 3 months. You were going out riding with Camilla again. I begged you to stay. Literally on my knees, Charles. On my knees begging for crumbs of attention. And you looked at me with that disdain. That disdain that said more than 1,000 words. As if I were a hysterical child interrupting adult matters. I remember, Charles whispered, shattered. Elizabeth was there. My mother. You threw yourself in front of her, hoping someone, anyone, would show concern. And she... God, she just stepped over you. Literally stepped over your body on the stairs and went to lunch. That day I understood my place in the firm, Diana said, using the nickname the royal family used for itself, recognizing itself as business, not family. I was a womb with legs. Incubator of heirs. Once William Philip Arthur Louis was born, and especially after Harry Charles Albert David secured the spare to the heir, my purpose was fulfilled. The rest was just enduring smiling waving. Dying inside. I could have changed that, Charles said, the realization falling on him like tons of concrete. One word from me and everything would be different. I had the power, had the position, but I chose Camilla. Always chose Camilla, even when it meant sacrificing you on the altar of my own selfish happiness. Diana floated closer, so close Charles could see through her to the weeping willows beyond, but also so close he could count every eyelash. You know what hurt most, Charles? It wasn't the emotional abandonment, wasn't the betrayals, It was the interview. Charles closed his eyes, but couldn't block the memory. The television at Highgrove, watching alone because he didn't have courage to watch with Camilla or anyone. Diana sitting in that armchair, wearing that heavy eyeliner that made her eyes seem even larger, even more vulnerable. Martin Bashir asking questions. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. Diana's voice quoted her own words from that infamous interview that cracked the monarchy at its foundations. 23 million people watched in England. Hundreds of millions around the world. And you know what was most devastating for me? It wasn't exposing the truth. It was realizing that even after exposed, you still chose Camilla. Publicly. Officially. The divorce, Charles murmured. The divorce Elizabeth forced, Diana corrected. Your mother finally acting, not to protect me, but to protect the institution I threatened merely by existing and refusing to disappear quietly. The gentleman that took away my HRH. Her Royal Highness. As if 3 letters defined my worth. As if I could stop being mother to future kings because your family decided I was a liability. You kept everything else, Charles tried, knowing how pathetic it sounded. The house, the money, access to the boys. Ah, Charles. Diana laughed, and it was a terrible sound. It held no joy, only bitter irony of someone who understood a cruel cosmic joke too late. You really think I wanted Kensington Palace? That mausoleum with walls that heard every cry, every crisis, every moment of despair I tried to hide from servants. I wanted freedom, wanted to start over, wanted to find true love away from cameras and protocols, and you. Dodi, Charles said the name like a curse. Dodi Fade. Yamad Eldin Mohammed Abdel Fade. Diana pronounced the full name of the man who died beside her in that tunnel. He wasn't the love of my life, Charles. Don't delude yourself with post-mortem romanticism. But he was kind, made me laugh. Treated me like a woman, not like an icon or problem to be managed. And yes, he was Muslim, and yes, his father Mohammed Al-Fayed had ambitions to connect with British royalty. Charles couldn't finish the sentence. And then the Mercedes entered that tunnel, Diana completed. Her translucent form trembling like an image on a television with weak signal. Henry Paul drunk at the wheel. The paparazzi on motorcycles like a pack of wolves pursuing prey. The concrete pillar. The metal twisting. Tavares Jones screaming. Dodi dying instantly. And I. God, Charles, I remained conscious. For 2 hours. Trapped in that car, feeling my life drain away, knowing William and Harry would wake up orphans. Tears streamed down Charles's face like rivers overflowing their banks. I was at Balmoral. With the boys. With Elizabeth. With Philip. When the phone rang at 2 a.m. Robin Janvrin, the Queen's private secretary, voice broke saying you were dead. And I woke William and Harry and told them their mother had gone. Watched my sons crumble. Watched especially Harry, so small, only 12 years old, trying to be strong. Trying not to cry, because Windsor men don't cry in public. And all I could think was, this is my fault. Not directly, Diana said, and there was pity in her voice that cut Charles more deeply than any accusation. You didn't kill Henry Paul with alcohol. Didn't pursue our limousine on a motorcycle. Didn't build that pillar. But Charles, you pushed me toward that car. Every betrayal, every public humiliation. Every time you chose Camilla over the integrity of our family, you pushed me one step closer to that tunnel in Paris. I know, Charles sobbed. God help me, I know. And I've lived with it every day since. I carried your coffin. Literally. Charles Spencer, my brother-in-law, insisted we walk behind you from Kensington to Westminster Abbey. William and Harry between us? Two small boys forced to display their grief for billions of people. And every step of that path, all I could think was, I did this. I destroyed their mother. I created the orphans walking behind me. The letter, Diana said abruptly. Did you read the letter I left with Paul Burrell? Charles froze. Paul Burrell, Diana's loyal butler, who guarded her secrets and later sold them in a scandalous book, had kept a letter Diana wrote years before her death. Prophetic letter. Terrible letter. I read it, Charles admitted. October 1996. 10 months before your death. You wrote you were worried I was planning an accident in your car. Brakes failing. Serious injuries. So Camilla could finally become my wife. Was I paranoid? Diane asked, but it wasn't really a question. Was I justifiably terrified living within a system that eliminated inconvenient obstacles over 1,000 years of history? How many kings' wives simply disappeared? How many mistresses became problems solved in convents or discreet executions? You were terrified, Charles said, each word torn from some place too deep to have a name. And I fed that terror with every indifference, every veiled threat to take the boys, every time people on my staff made you understand it would be easier for everyone if you simply disappeared from the narrative.
But even after all that, Diana said, her voice softening, I still loved William and Harry more than my own life. Still tried to be a good mother. Still took Harry to McDonald's and William to swimming lessons. Still hugged them when they cried and told bedtime stories. Because they were innocent in all this destruction. And I refused to let parents' mistakes poison their childhood. You were a magnificent mother, Charles said. And finally, it was truth unfiltered by resentment or competition. Better than any of us. Better than Elizabeth with her protocols and emotional distance. Better than me with my state obligations and rural escapism. You love them fiercely, completely, the way every child deserves, but few receive, especially in our family, where displays of affection are considered weakness. And now they're men, Diana observed. Sadness painting every syllable. William Philip Arthur Lewis, the future king you molded in your image. And Harry Charles Albert David, the spare who rebelled, who fled the firm exactly as I wanted to do but never had courage enough, until it was too late. They carry our wounds, Charles. William, with his carefully constructed marriage to Catherine Elizabeth, trying to do differently, but repeating patterns. Harry, with his anger, his unresolved trauma, fleeing to California, with Meghan trying to escape the same hell that consumed me. I failed them too, Charles acknowledged. William barely speaks to me except for official matters. Harry wrote me out of that letter in his book Spare. All the pain, all the anger, all the perception that he was always secondary, always plan B, the insurance in case something happened to William. And he's right. The firm treated him exactly that way. I treated him exactly that way. The firm, Diana repeated, and there was so much weight in those two words. The institution that devours its children, that transforms people into roles, that sacrifices individual happiness on the altar of dynastic continuity. You're part of it, Charles. You're king now, Charles III, and with that crown on your head. You perpetuate the same system that destroyed us. I tried to change, Charles protested weakly. When Elizabeth finally died, when I finally became king at 74, after waiting a lifetime, I tried to modernize, simplify, make the monarchy relevant for the 21st century. And you crowned Camilla as queen, Diana said. And there it was, the core of everything, the wound that never healed. The woman who destroyed our marriage. The woman for whom you abandoned me. The woman who whispered in your ear for decades while I suffered in headlines. You placed her in Westminster Abbey, put the crown on her head, and told the world she was worth it. All the suffering, all the destruction, all the blood on the wheels worth it because I finally have the woman I always wanted. Diana. Charles began, but she cut him off.
No, the apparition said, her form beginning to oscillate like a flame in wind. You need to understand, Charles Philip Arthur George. You need to carry this. I'm not here to forgive you. Forgiveness would be easy. Would be relief you don't deserve. I'm here to deliver your sentence. The air became frigid. The temperature plunged so drastically Charles's breath formed ice crystals that fell to the ground like frozen tears. The lake waters began to churn, impossible waves on a windless night. Your punishment, Diana pronounced each word, with the clarity of a judge reading final verdict, is to live. Is to wake every morning beside Camilla Rosemary and see my face. Is to look at William and Harry and see what you destroyed. Is to sit on that throne, wear that crown, and know every jewel is stained with blood of what could have been. Is to age, Charles. Is to age knowing, when you finally die and they place your body alongside other kings and queens in St. George's Chapel, history will remember you not for your charitable works, not for your environmentalism, not for your years of service, but as the man who destroyed Diana. No, Charles moaned, but knew it was true. Future generations will study our marriage in history books, Diana continued, implacable. Make documentaries, write plays and scripts, and in every version, every retelling, you'll be the villain. The prince who had everything and chose to destroy an innocent woman because he couldn't love anything beyond his mistress. And Camilla. Poor Camilla. She waited so long, endured so much hatred, finally got you. But she'll never have the people's love, never have the respect I earn not by title, but by humanity. She'll always be the other woman, and you'll always be the man who killed me slowly before Paris finished the job. How can I live with this? Charles asked, shattered. How do I wake each day carrying this wake? The same way I lived with it when I was alive, Diana answered, and there was no triumph in her voice, only infinite sadness. You breathe. Put one foot in front of the other. Smile for cameras. Fulfill your obligations. And inside, you die a little each day. You become a ghost inhabiting your own life, exactly as I was for 15 years inside your marriage. Her form began to fade, dissolving back into the mist from which it emerged. Diana, wait, Charles pleaded, extending his hand, desperate. Please. There must be something I can do. Some form of redemption. Some path to make amends. Her voice came from all directions, and none, a final whisper before silence. Love your children, Charles. Really love them, not as future kings or extensions of the dynasty, but as human beings who deserve happiness more than obligation. Let Harry be free without punishing him for choosing love over duty. Let William be vulnerable without demanding strength. No man can sustain indefinitely. And perhaps, just perhaps, you can break the cycle that has shattered generations of our family. That's your only possible redemption. Not for me, but for our children, for grandchildren I'll never meet, for all the future Dianas who will enter this family naive and be chewed up by the machine unless you change everything. And then she disappeared. Completely. The mist dispersed as if it had never existed. The lake waters calmed. The temperature returned to October normal. The leaves stopped glowing. Charles remained alone on his knees before the memorial, trembling violently. Tears and sweat, and perhaps blood he had bitten his lip, until it bled without noticing mixing on his face. He didn't know how long he stayed like that. Minutes, hours, an eternity compressed into a single moment of devastating clarity. Finally, with movements of a man 3 times his age, he stood. His clothes were soaked with dew and perhaps something more. His hands trembled uncontrollably, but in his eyes, for the first time in decades, there was purpose that didn't come from obligation or tradition. He crossed the bridge back to shore. Each step hurt not physically, but existentially, as if carrying weight no spine could support. In the car, his hand hovered over the cell phone. William. He needed to call William. Needed to fix something, anything. But not here. Not now. First, he needed to return to Clarence's house. Needed to look Camilla in the eyes and have the conversation both had avoided for decades. Needed to decide what kind of king he would be. What kind of father? What kind of man? When the Bentley disappeared into darkness, a single lily of the valley flower floated to the lake's surface. Impossible in October. Impossible in any reality, following natural laws. But there it was. White. Pure. a reminder of broken promises, and perhaps, just perhaps, the most tenuous possibility of redemption in a life lived differently from everything that came before. At the memorial, the mist returned briefly, forming a silhouette one last time. Diana Frances Spencer watched the car depart carrying the man who had been her husband, her torment, her indirect assassin. And then, with a sigh that could have been wind, or could have been a soul finally letting go, she vanished, leaving only the night, only the lake, only the impossible weight of choices made and never unmade. And at Clarence's house, hours later, Camilla Rosemary would wake to find Charles sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his own hands as if he'd never seen them before. And when she asked what was wrong, he would say only, "I saw her. I saw Diana. And she showed me who I really am." And for the first time in 50 years of relationship, Camilla would have no answer. Because some truths are too heavy to be carried by two. Some crosses were made to be carried alone. And Charles Philip Arthur George, King of the United Kingdom, defender of the faith, would carry his until his last breath. If this story touched something in you, whether anger, sadness, understanding, or simply the need to witness pain that cannot be silenced, leave your mark in the comments below. Tell us, do you believe ghosts exist? Or is guilt ghost enough to haunt any man until his death? If you yearn for more stories that inhabit the nebulous space between official history and hidden truths, leave your like, subscribe to this channel, and activate notification bells. Stories where the supernatural meets power, where royal secrets whisper through centuries-old walls, where the past is never truly dead, because in Buckingham Palace, in Windsor, in Althorpe Estate, the walls have memory, and we are the guardians of these memories. Until the next story, where we'll reveal another secret the British Crown would prefer to keep buried. Some truths demand to be told, even when they hurt, especially when they hurt.